The live stream is just starting now, everyone.
Thomas, how are you?
Right, we're on countdown. 1 minute to go by my recollection. Or by what my computer says.
The live stream is going well there, Mayor Jenny.
Thank you for that, Tim. Appreciate that.
No problem.
All right, we will make a start, councillors, for this meeting. Thank you for your attendance. I appreciate that. Now, just before we start, just a couple of housekeeping bits here. I am actually doing two screens at the moment, so I won't always be looking straight at your screen. So, and I think there might be a couple of others that have got a couple of screens as well. But I will declare the full council meeting by Zoom of our South Waikato District Council, Thursday, the 19th of August. I now declare that open. And I want to thank you all for being able to be here. I want to thank Tim for your support today here to get us onto Zoom and also to live stream it as well. I appreciate that. And I also want to thank the secretaries. There's been quite a lot of work gone on behind the scene to make this happen. So thank you, everybody. Zoom's not the norm, that's for sure, but we will do our best with it. I'm sure we'll be fine. We will be, as I said, and as you know, that we will be streaming the meeting. Hopefully that this lockdown is only going to be for 3 days, but I think there are indications, quite strong indications, that it might last longer than that. That's my opinion only. So we need to be prepared for whatever eventuates. So before I do start with apologies, I just got the thought for the day before we start the meeting, and it's in opening the meeting, councillors, that I want to say that it's our privilege and it's our responsibility to support and to advance our district in all our thinking. I hope we will endeavour to listen with patience and without prejudice, and that we thoughtfully hear alternative points of view so that we can find collaborative solutions that will benefit all of our community and our people. I also want to acknowledge the effect that this current lockdown is having on our community, and we hope that as we are a loving and caring community, that we will reach out to each other and support each other, mindful that we do follow the COVID rules. And I just want to say that council will do all that we can to support, ease the pain of lockdown, and we hope that everybody stays safe and healthy. Thank you. Right, next thing, before I also call for apologies, I'm just going to confirm standing orders today, and as we ran the meeting last council meeting, I'm going to do the same. That we will, and this is for the reports part of the meeting, we will have the reports presented by staff. There will be an ability for points of clarification and discussion at that stage. If the presenter is comfortable with that, you can ask a question on the way through. Otherwise, you can keep your questions to the very end, but you'll have one opportunity at the end of the presentation to speak. I'll then ask for a mover and a seconder for the resolution that is put, and then that will open it up for discussion. If there's nobody that is going to move the recommendation, then I'll ask for another recommendation, or if there's an amendment to the recommendation, then we'll work through that at the time. The mover has 2 opportunities to speak. Everybody has 1 opportunity to speak. Once everybody's had their say, then I will put the motion. And we'll go back to, sorry, the mover, and then I will put the motion. Please, if you can, let me know at the beginning of your own speaking whether you are for or against the motion. So as I said, once everyone's spoken, I'll put the motion to the vote. And that should get us through quite nicely and tidily for today. So I have now apologies. We'll go down the agenda. I have apologies from Councillor Jansen, who is at work, and I understand they're very busy today, and Councillor Petley, who for lateness, and he will be joining us later if he can. Right, confirmation of the agenda. I'm going to move agenda item 8.5, and that's the carry forward budgets from 2021 to 2022. I'm going to move them up to just after my mayoral report. We've got Mr. Smith, Mrs. Robinson, and Ms. Barat, and I think Ms. Fabry also have to leave the meeting and come in and out of the meeting because they've got COVID related Zoom meetings that they have to be at. So I'm going to move that. So can I have somebody to confirm the agenda, please?
Your worship, may I just say something?
Councillor Dane has moved it. Councillor.
Oh no, just a second. Just public forum is on the agenda under item 5. Maybe we need to remove that as well.
We do too, thank you. I was going to remove that when we got to it, but I will also do that. Okay, so we're going to, yes, there is no public forum. Thank you, Councillor Dane. So can we have...
Happy to move that for you.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Dane is moving. Seconder, please.
Wallace.
Councillor Wallace, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Are there any conflicts of interest on the agenda today? Right, there being none, thank you. Public forum's gone. There are no new staff being introduced today. So just before we go, before we confirm the minutes, I just welcome all the executive team here as well. They've been doing an awful lot of work getting or keeping business as usual running with council, as well as dealing with the COVID things that have arisen there. And dealing with that. So thank you for all the work the executive team has been doing already and for being here supporting us today too. So we've got the confirmation of the minutes, and these minutes are on, and I've also got a hard copy here that I'm working from, page 5 of your agenda. They are the minutes of the full council meeting on Thursday, the 29th of July, and I'm just looking for matters of fact at the moment. So we're going through page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and page 10. So has anybody got any matters of fact that they would like to bring up?
No.
Right, thank you. Being none, can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Councillor Lee, happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Seconded.
Wallace.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. All those in favour? Again,
Aye.
Carried. Any matters arising from these minutes, please? Right, being none, moving on to the Tito Community Board meeting, and that's on page 11. We will just be receiving these minutes. And now I am seeking matters of fact. No, we're not, sorry, we're just receiving these. Councillor Shorter, have you got any comment as the Tito Community representative on these minutes? You're on mute, Councillor Shorter. Can you unmute it? Yep, thanks.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, okay, now the report is a true report of what actually happened at that meeting. So I cannot add anything more.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Can I have a, oh, sorry, Councillor Naylor.
Can I mention that at TCB meeting, there was a mention that the T-Rail Domain Community Group has asked to be to have the two domains put together in one, and there was action was going to be undertaken. Could search be undertaken to see if it's still listed? That is page 14. And has there been a search done? and if it could be reinstated. Page 14, action staff to search the incorporated societies registered to see if there's still an entity in the name of the T-Rail Domain Board.
Mr. Smith, have you got a response to that, please?
Through you, Chair, I think Mr. Parker's on the line who could probably better answer that.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Parker? I can't see
Yes,
you,
good.
sorry.
Good morning, elected members. So the domain board was disestablished when the South Waikato District Council entity was established, and the administering body under the ZEVS Act transferred to the SWDC.
Can you explain it a bit, Phil? What do you mean? So it is
Sure. So
disestablished?
yeah, so certain domains, including T Road domain as it was known then, and also Litchfield domain, were under individual boards that were appointed by the Crown to manage and control those reserves. For T Road domain and later the Litchfield domain boards, they were disestablished when the SWDC was established in 1989. And so we took over that role as administrating body.
Yep. Thank you very much, Phil. Yep. Thank you.
You're happy with that?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We're moving on now then to our reports. And the first report that we have is 8.1. It's my mayoral report. And it starts on page 15 and goes to page 16. There are a couple of amendments that I am going to add to my report. On Wednesday, the 11th of August, I attended and was invited to a Rotary meeting. And on Thursday, the 12th of August, was the extraordinary council meeting. And on the Friday, the 13th of August, after the AGM of the Timber Museum, Deputy Mayor and I met with Julie Hardacre. So with those additions to the report, I'm going to move my report. Have I got a seconder, please?
Happy to second for you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think it was all right. Thank you, Councillor Dane. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you. Any matters arising from my report? Any questions, comments?
Yeah, Your Worship, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
I think it's it's a pretty cool story around the Cook Island Community Society funding that you gave out. Maybe it's worth sharing why $2,000.
Right. The Cook Island Community Society were part of a or had entered into the Cook Island. It was a show basically, or a competition up in Auckland of dancing, of different presentations. They'd worked very, very hard on these presentations, and they did very, very well. At the last minute, unfortunately, their accommodation was going to cost them a lot more than what they had earlier anticipated, and they'd been fundraising for it for a long time. So they did approach me and ask if I would be able to cover off the bus up to the venue in Auckland. They certainly did us proud. You might have seen on social media some of the performances, but they did very, very well, and I was really happy to support that, to getting them up there. Do you want to add anything to that, Councillor Dane?
No, it's pretty hard to explain through words without seeing the performances, but it was very well received from the Tukuroa community, more so the Cook Island community. So I think it's $2,000 very well spent in our community, and just probably on behalf of the Cook Island community, just echoing the thanks for that funding, because without that funding, it wouldn't have been possible for them to attend. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dane, and I have had, I've already had some thanks from them. Any other comments about my mayoral report? There being none, okay, thank you. We're going to move straight on then to page 44, which is 8.5 on the carry forward budgets. This is so that we can catch Fiona and Ben and, sorry, Ms. Farrar, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Robinson before they have to head away for a short time. Mr. Smith, Mrs. Farrar, would you like to take us through this report, please? Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, I'll let Fiona lead and we can chime in as required.
Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. So in my report, I've given detail of the total amount of carryovers that are requested, which is 16.7 million. The large projects include the Patari Water Park, Te Rau Domain, wheelie bins, capping of the landfill, and wastewater. And what is different to this year to what I presented last year is the fact that 87% of the 16 million is actually committed, and we've got contracts left for the majority of those items. So that's certainly quite positive. We would expect that most of those carryovers will be spent early in this new year. And there's a full list of all the items in the attachment to the report, and I've included the reason for the carryovers and the funding source in the report. And I'm just open for any questions or to the other general managers that any of the councillors may have.
Thank you, Ms. Farrar. Appreciate that. My question, and I will start, you've made the comment there that it is expected that we will remain within our KPIs of the plus or minus 500,000. When will we get to know whether we have met that KPI or not, please?
My apologies, the events of the last couple of days hindered me working a little bit more on that. My first indication is that we're around about minus 100,000, but we're still finalising some of the numbers for year end, so should be able to provide that within the week, I would imagine.
All right, thank you. Are there any other points of clarification, questions from anybody else?
Sandra Wallace.
Councillor Wallace.
My question was, when I was looking through, there seemed to be a lot of not required in the reason for carryover. So I just it just seemed, why was it in there and then they're not required? So that was sort of my question, just the wording. And a lot of it was around water and stuff like that. So why was it not required? Thank you.
I would start the answer to that. Sorry, another change that we've done this year is we've actually provided the full CapEx list that normally goes to council every meeting, just so that you can see the full capital list and you know where the end of year result is and whether we've needed it or not. So a lot of those items that are not required are just minor under or overspends of budget at the end of the year. So it was more for information than anything specific, whereas in previous years we haven't included all of that extra information. It was just really a year-end position to help out with your understanding. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dane, did you have, yes?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I was just a question for Fiona. So these are projects that didn't happen during the last financial year, I'm sort of gathering. So if we carry this forward, what does this mean for the projects that are planned for next year? Does that mean that they are possibly won't be, there could be a possible another rollover there? I also understand that with COVID last year, and that just really mixed things up a bit, trying to get things done and sorted. But what does it mean for the future going forward for our projects?
Might let Mr. Anderson answer that. Most of the projects are within his area, so he probably will provide a better response.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Yes. I should just grab that spreadsheet again. So essentially, we've got in the assets group, it was about, about 10, let me try again. The total cost that I've got to deliver over the next 12 months or the next 10 months to the 30th of June is $34.7 million. I've looked at all the projects that we're going to need to deliver, and I've apportioned the work over all the project managers and looked at additional resources that we need to deliver. So all the planning is underway to make sure that there is a package of work which gives between 8 and 5 projects to each of the project managers, and each of the project managers are delivering a package of between $8 and $1.5 million worth of work, which they're managing, and so that's an appropriate quantum of work for them to deliver. So the planning is to deliver everything in those timeframes. However, there are potentials that over the next 12 months, we may run into challenges, and some of those challenges might be plant and equipment that is needed from offshore that takes longer to deliver, or on occasions we can get into challenges with landowner or resource consents that take a little bit longer than what is planned. The intentions at this stage are to deliver that full $35 million worth of work over the next 10 months. We do recognize that it's going to be a big ask, but that is what I'm planning for and have got a high level of confidence of achieving. However, I can't control what I can't control.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate that answer. So at this stage, my understanding is that you've got all the capability and you've got the capability to actually carry out those projects.
If I may, Your Worship, there was a question from the auditor as part of our LTP this year, where they asked that question of us already. So we have been preparing starting last financial year to make sure that we've got plans in place to deliver.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other comments from any other councillor? You're going to actually have to speak, sorry, because I can't see all of you on my screen. So if you do want to say something, just like Councillor Wallace, just say your name. I'd appreciate that. All right, so if there are no more...
Sorry, Your Worship.
Oh, Mr. Naidu.
Yeah, just need to highlight that, and apologies for that. So one of the carryovers I actually missed didn't include in the report, and I'm just hoping that I could mention it. So it was during our community contracts workshop, we did identify for the Waikato Sports Hub that we could carry over $17,000 from the district recreation, which is the Sports Waikato, to support the first year of funding for the Waikato Sports Hub initiative. So I just want to recommend that we do that as well.
Mr. Naidu, just a question there, please. The district recreation fee that used to go to Sport Waikato, that's what we're talking about.
That's correct, yeah. So I don't know if...
that was a total of 80K.
Yes.
There was 50K continues to go to Sport Waikato, so that leaves 30 left. How can we get 70 out of 30?
So what happened was the recommendation that came through from Sports Waikato to reduce the funding actually happened in December. So the first quarter was paid as per usual, and then we also paid for that initiative the $5,500, or I think it's $5,500 for the work they did around supporting the recreational play which was not part of the contract. So our contract was the only one that did not have it as part of the contract, where all the other councils, it was part of the original contract. So that's the difference in the funding.
Through you, Worship, the carryover request is 22.
Thank you.
Just through you, Worship.
Sorry, yeah, carry on.
Sorry, it's just through you, Worship. The other one, we are experiencing just around the ability to deliver projects. We certainly are struggling with technical staff, particularly project managers and engineers. That has been a struggle, and that's just the current crisis with people unable to come into New Zealand is making this significantly worse, and a huge amount of pressure on external contractors trying to get people to do things is actually just ramping up and up and up. So I think we're in a great state from a planning point of view, but yeah, whether we have
project management is more difficult.
Yeah, project management and actually just getting people to do things is just becoming very difficult. The price escalation in the market is going to be extraordinary over the next few years as well, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, and it is a New Zealand-wide issue, isn't it? Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Naidu. So you are wanting then that community contracts carry over to be included in the recommendation, are you?
Yes, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. So if there's no one else that wants anything for clarification, I will put the 2 or the 3 recommendations there will be now, that we receive the report that the budget as listed be approved for carryover, and that the community contracts carry over. All right, so help with the recommendation, please.
Yeah, so
that includes the community contracts carryover budget as
that's
well.
correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, can I have a mover and a seconder for
You want to be
that?
specific for that? Sorry, Your Worship.
Sorry, sorry, Ms. Brown.
I was thinking with the resolution, maybe you should be specific to be carried over for the Pataru Sports Hub.
Okay.
Actually, in the wording of the resolution.
All right. Thank you. Getting that down. Thank you. So I'm seeking mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Machin is moving it. Seconder.
Councillor Schulte.
Councillor Schulte. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Okay. Any further comments or debate anybody wants to have on the carryover report?
Your Worship, can I just please seek clarification on that recommendation that we're adding? What it says word for word?
That so recommendation 2 is that the budgets as listed in the appendices be approved to carry over, and that the budget for the community contracts budget for the Pataru Sports Hub be carried over to 2021-2022.
Yep.
All right.
Excuse me, Your Worship. We should actually mention the amount there as well, for the amount of 22,000.
22,000. So the community, it will be carried over the amount of 22,000 for the Pataru Sports Hub. Happy
Your
with that?
Worship. Yeah, sorry, Your Worship, it's 22,500. Apologies.
22,500. So where did the 70,000 come from, and which you spoke about first?
Yeah, so the $17,000 is what's left over. So we need to carry over from other budgets to make up the 20,000. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. So are there any other comments? Councillor Machin? Nobody else? Councillor Machin, you moved it. Do you want to have your right of reply?
I'm perfectly happy with it.
Oh, thank you very much. Then that's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Thank you. Just to let you all know, and I think you've probably seen, Mr. Smith's going to be leading the meeting for about half an hour. to join the regional leadership group on COVID. All right. So thank you, Mr. Smith. We'll see you shortly. Okay, moving back then to item 2 on our next report on the agenda is the amendment of the reserve purpose. This is the Litchfield Water Headworks. Now, I am going to be taking all these reports as read, but Mr. Parker, you're going to be presenting this. Thank you. And if you want to speak to your report, it's all yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, quite, as you say, take it as being read, just to tidy up of a legal aspect in regards to the purposing of the local purpose reserve that's stated there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any point, or can I have a move and a second? It's a pretty straightforward report. Can I have a move? Thank you, Councillor Narford. Have I got a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor.
I do have one question when you're ready, Your Worship.
Yes, I am. I'm opening it up for debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker, for your report. I just wanted to get some feedback on I understand the reason we're changing it, and I understand the historical background in the report. It makes it quite clear. My question was, going forward, is there any reason why the purpose would ever need to change again?
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I wouldn't envisage so. It is a headworks, and I can't see that changing. There is the adjoining section 6, is also a local purpose reserve. I think that was that is also under purpose as public hall. I think intentions originally was for a car park for the public hall on section 7. That is different to section 7. Section 7 is vested in council. Section 6 next door is under an appointment to manage and control from the Crown. So in terms of wanting to use any of that land for perhaps recreational purposes further down the track, it would likely be section 6 we would use rather than section 7 where the headworks are located.
Thank you, Your Worship. That answers my question.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on the report?
Councillor Lee is happy to move the recommendations.
It has been moved. Sorry, Councillor Napa has moved it. Councillor Naylor has seconded it. There being no other discussion, cool. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Next one, 8.3. This is the stopping of the unformed road off Tomlin Road between Litchfield and Baldwin Road. We've got, is Vicky Moore here, please? Mr. Anderson, I think you're running this at the moment, aren't you? That Mr. Smith is not here.
Yes, that is correct, Your Worship.
I haven't seen.
Yeah. To you, Your Worship, I'm happy to present the report. I think Vicky is not available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll take the report as read. It's just a straightforward stopping of a piece of road between Litchfield and Tomlin. So the process has been followed. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to take that.
Thank you, Mr. Naidu. I just do have one question to start, or for clarification, please. We're looking at stopping Tomlin Road and the unformed road between Litchfield and Baldwin's Road. However, the recommendation only talks about Tomlin Road. Is that is that intentional, or is that just an oversight of the resolution?
I think that's an oversight because I actually had a read of it this morning when I was asked to present it, and I saw the recommendation as one. So I think you're right. There's actually both, so we can fix that. So it'll be definitely both here.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions for clarification from the
Your Worship.
Councillor Naylor.
These roads, did they belong to the council? Did those people have to buy that land from us?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. It is land that belonged to council. It was basically paper roads that were identified for future extensions. So they are not required anymore. What happens is the land is sold to individuals that adjoined the piece of road, and it's worked on what the value of their land is divided by what the area of the road is. So we pay against the value of their land.
And do you get a valuer in to value their land?
Yeah, so it's based on the most recent valuation of the land divided by the area, and then we just apply that to the piece of road. Yeah.
All right. All right.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right.
Yeah, I've got a question, Your Worship.
Sorry, Councillor Dane.
Sorry. I was doing a bit of research around the Rural Access Committee. Now, I believe is that committee, they distribute the funds from selling the likes of a paper road, is that correct? What happens with the money that's generated from the sale of these paper roads?
This previously, goodness me, my memory goes back. It's been a wee while since we've used funding from there.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, can you help me with
yes.
that? Thank you.
Your Worship, Councillor Dane is correct that the funding, the income from the sale of the paper roads went into a fund that was administered by that Rural Access group. There were some rules around how the funding was to be used, and I think it related to the enhancement of riverways, waterways. Is that correct?
I think you are correct, Mr. Anderson, but I'm also with my thinking that it was only the paper roads, the income from the paper roads that was sold to Hancock in the forest. Am I correct?
Okay, I'm not aware of the finer details of that,
all
and
right.
so I don't have enough knowledge to.
That's all right. We'll get that information for you, Councillor Dane.
Thank you, Your Worship.
You're correct.
Right. So Councillor Mason?
Yes, I had that portfolio a few years ago, and it was the sale of the Hancock lands that was put into a fund to be used for specific purposes in regard to waterways, access to streams and everything. You may recall we looked at it at the time of the investigation into the Pokai walkway. And however, we didn't continue with that, so that pot of money is still available to be used under certain conditions. So I probably need to start to have another look at it, because that group has been for quite some time, years in fact, and it also involved people from Forest and Bird were included in that group.
You're correct. Thank you, Councillor Machin.
Councillor Schulte?
Councillor Schulte.
I think for the last, in this term, term before that as well, I'm on that committee and we've never met.
Yes, that's correct. There's been no applications to that fund.
That's right. And it was talked about also using it for the Oraka stream for the T-Row domain.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that.
So, Councillor Naylor?
Councillor Naylor?
I support Councillor Dane's recommendation that if that money from the paper roads goes into that fund, maybe...
I didn't hear that was a recommendation by Councillor Dane. Councillor Naylor?
Well, the paper roads are sold, and the money, where will the money be going to? Wasn't that from Councillor Dane's suggestion that it was going into a certain direction?
I understood that Councillor Dane was just asking about that that committee or that pot of funding.
All right.
Councillor Dane, have you got it, please?
Yeah, Your Worship, it was more just around seeking clarification, but
Yes.
from what I read under the committee structure, I believe that any sale of paper roads, the money goes to that fund, but I could be wrong, and I just seek clarification in due course.
Right, we will. Thank you for that. We will. What my understanding, Councillor Lee, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I'm just writing something down. Yep.
Okay, thank you. What we're doing here with this report is we're just finishing and tidying up this report after we've already had a resolution by council that we were going to stop those unformed roads. So this is just finalising the whole project. All right. Okay, but as an aside, we will check we will check on the terms of reference for the rural access roads and see how it applies to this report. All right. So I will go and put the motion or the recommendation now that the report 2020-563-636 stopping of unformed road off Tomalin Road, DO 514923, and unformed road between Litchfield and Baldwin Road, SO 505-100, be received, and that the sections are declared to be stopped road pursuant to the Local Government Act. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Councillor Shulter.
Thank you, Councillor Shulter. Seconder?
Councillor Dane.
Councillor Dane. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you.
Worship, Councillor Petley's joined.
Oh, you have to. Welcome, Councillor Petley. Good to have you here. Thank you. Right. Now there was a lot of attachments to. So what happened there? Thank you. 8.4, moving on to public places bylaw review. We have a report from three right authors of the report, Julie Cathy, Phil Parker and Kerry Beckett. Mr. Parker, are you going to be presenting this report to us today? Right.
Oh, I can start, Your Worship.
Oh, Kathy, sorry, I didn't see you, realise you were there. Sorry. Yep, go for it.
Good morning, Your Worship, councillors and staff. Just to give a quick introduction, the prompt for consultation has come about due to the concerns with alcohol-related incidents and excessive littering occurring at the predominantly the Tokara Memorial Sports Ground. As outlined in the report, council does have the power to make bylaws to protect the public from nuisance and minimise the potential for offensive behaviour in public. So that brings us here today. Just in regard to an updated map that may have been emailed separately to councillors, it didn't quite make the agenda. And an update in regard to the pre-consultation that's planned in liaison with Sport Waikato. A meeting has been arranged with users of the sports ground for Wednesday the 25th of August in the evening, but due to our current situation, this may change. Now, I'm not, Mr. Parker, if he's there, may be able to talk more about the parks and reserves, but otherwise, we'll just happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cathy, appreciate that. Can I just ask then, we'll set for clarification, have we consulted with all the user groups of the Memorial Sports Ground and what is their position?
Sport Waikato have been working with them. I think they've had an invitation to attend the meeting next week. it's quite a wide group, as you can imagine. But yeah, well, we'll just have to, they've probably had some initial discussions, but the public meeting is set for next Wednesday night, 5:30 p.m. at the event centre, if it goes ahead. Otherwise, we'll have to go to plan B.
All right, thank you. So they haven't had any input into this proposed change in the bylaw?
Not as yet. We will be made aware of that next week.
I can speak to that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Sorry, my screen cut out
for
some reason. Yeah, so the engagement team working with Sport Waikato and their recommendation was that they meet one-to-one rather than doing that sort of consultation over the phone, and to include it in with other consultation regarding, well, a couple of items on their agenda that they wanted to meet with users, introducing the Sport Waikato new way of doing things, especially the collaboration with council, gaining feedback on the key outcomes of the play, active recreation sports plan, pre-engagement on the hubbing concept, and then also pre-engagement on the public places bylaw review. So quite a number of things they wanted to cover in the consultation. So they thought it best to do that one-on-one, and they'll be doing that before the end of the month, all going well.
Okay,
thank you.
Are there any points of clarification?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Napel.
Thank you.
Page 40. Paragraph starting in regard to the option of proposing to prohibit, and so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs that I just want to briefly address. Firstly, I see firstly, thank you for the report, for all of the report writers. I just wondered, in some ways I see this as being quite reactionary to one incident, and I wondered whether or not we could make our policy more proactive. The reason I say that is because the report on page 40 says that there's been no significant or ongoing alcohol-related issues identified by council to warrant prohibiting alcohol in any local neighbourhood or esplanade reserves within Tokoroa, including the Lake Moananui Reserve. And essentially, I've interpreted that logic has been applied to the Colson's Hill lookout area, and with the exception of the Glenshire Park, which the report says it's covered by the prohibition of alcohol being brought into and consumed within that building. So I wondered why we're perhaps looking at more of a reactionary policy when we can be proactive. We can tell the community that we don't want alcohol to be consumed at Lake Moananui. We don't want alcohol to be consumed up at Colson's Hill. If they're not doing it, if the community isn't consuming alcohol, then imposing this wouldn't matter. No one would be upset about it, but it would give clear intention to anyone visiting our community, for those people that don't actually reside here, that they're really clear of how we as a council see alcohol consumption within our community and our reserves. That's my comment, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Napel. Are there any other points that anybody else would like to raise for clarification?
Councillor Lee.
Councillor Lee.
Yeah, just also in the report it stated that the Strathmore Park, where the soccer is played, that they don't seem to have a problem there, but when they have the Friday night summer soccer down there, they have a lot of people down there drinking at that time, and of course that event, there are children playing in those games as well as adults. So I was just actually sort of along the line what Councillor Napa was just saying, that maybe we should include that as part of the proposal bylaw review as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Your Worship, I'm happy to make a comment.
Councillor Dane?
From reading this report, it's my understanding that this amendment isn't addressing the alcohol issue, but rather just some other fine amendments around, from my understanding, some gang activity and also some horse issues. I believe earlier in the report it speaks that I think on page 39, alcohol in the sports grounds. South Waikato District Council is currently reviewing the bylaw of alcohol in public spaces. To me, that bylaw is still to come to council, and it's not this bylaw that we're currently speaking about. Maybe seek some clarification from Phil.
Mr. Parker?
Yes, a bit confused on what Councillor Lang was referring to there. Julie might have more information in terms of the bylaws coming up for review.
Can I just have an understanding, as part of the public places bylaw, that includes where alcohol can be consumed and cannot. So if we're looking at public places, for example, reserve sports grounds, other places, the public places bylaw covers off whether alcohol can be consumed there or not. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, correct.
And so this public places bylaw does cover off alcohol in public places, and there is further down the attachment of the maps that will show the areas where there will be the proposed be no alcohol.
Okay.
I
must have misread. My apologies.
No problem. No. Okay. Thank you. Is there any other anyone else want to make a comment? All right. I'm going to
Your Worship. Sorry, Your Worship. Sharon Robinson here.
Mrs. Robinson. Thank you. I didn't see you.
Yes. So if I can just to talk of what Mr. Parker and Mrs. Cathy have already said. So this report has been brought to council from a request from clearly a reactionary situation, and we were focusing on just the Memorial Sports Ground. We did widen the discussion with the police, and they made it clear to us that the only area of concern for them presently was the Memorial Sports Ground. We so often when we are amending a bylaw, we do need some evidence to for us to take those next steps to require regulation, and in some of those areas that have been mentioned by councillors, that evidence isn't currently available to us. We did request some further stats and clarification from police, but that hasn't been forthcoming in an evidentiary situation. Just as a reminder, this is a request of council to endorse a draft bylaw, which will then go out for full public consultation. And if further requests regarding other areas or different times, that will be heard through hearing. So we did also discuss whether to look at the cemeteries bylaw at the same time, and we've let that sit in situ. The other minor changes, if I can call them minor, that Councillor Dane mentioned, staff have added, because they were purely, let's say, administrative in nature rather than substantive for the public places bylaw, because the public places bylaw is not due for its full review. So we kept it quite a narrow focus to ensure that this came back to you urgently.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Right, I just want to make a comment if I can, because at this stage I partially support the motion, but I'm proposing that we change what we actually go out with. So I accept that there has been poor behaviour at the Memorial Sports Ground, and I accept that it did come back to council elected members did ask for this to be looked at. And I accept that something needs to be done to manage that. And I accept that rubbish, bottles and brawling are never, ever acceptable. But I also acknowledge that the sports clubs involved, they have stepped up to address this issue with their members at the Memorial Sports Ground. And I also accept that we have asked staff to review the bylaw. Just a couple of points though. I don't support making pirates, and that's what's going out, a no alcohol area. I think this is a venue, it's owned by council, it's an alternative function venue that we could use, and it's alternative to and cheaper to their sport and event centre at the sport ground. If it's hired out, as it is part of the Memorial Sports Ground, we have staff working at the event centre. We could have staff working at the Pirates if it was overseeing the functions there. We could do the same with Pirates if that was an option or something that we considered. It is in reasonable condition. We did some work on it a few years ago, and I think that that could be managed. I also think that we are a district, and I know that we are reactionary, and that's a choice that we have made. When we do extra or put in these bylaws, and we have been and looked at just one area, but if we are going to, as we are a district, if we are going to put prohibition measures in place, then I think they should be across the whole district, across the district. All sports grounds or no sports grounds, all parks have potential for alcohol abuse in all areas, and I think we should be looking right across the district. So I support the reactive stance that we take. I support the changes to the wording and the objectives. They were 6.1, 6.2, 4.2, and the other small changes. But I am suggesting that there be some alterations to what we are planning to go out with with the liquor bans. That's my comments. Yep. Is there anybody else that has a comment to make? All right. So there being none, I'm going to put those recommendations. Okay, so I'm going to here move the recommendations now myself, that we receive the report and that council staff modify the proposed changes and additions to the Public Places Bylaw 2017, and I will stop there. And we lay it on the table for modification. Have I assisted? You're going to move it, Councillor Napel?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'm moving it, you're seconding it, sorry. Okay, cool. Comments please. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Your Worship, I'd have to say that I don't agree with your view of the pirates, only just because of what I've noticed when I've gone out and about, and alcohol keeps on being a major issue in our community. And I've seen the shindigs happen at the X Club, and I've seen, yeah, I just think that if there's no one, if they're left to their own, it gets pretty crazy. Well, at the surf club and at the event centre, at least we've got sensible, sober staff on the ground monitoring the premises. So yeah, I can't see the benefit in actually making pirates a alcohol friendly higher place, because we're just going to be kind of feel like that we'll be going around in a circle, and we could possibly be back here in a few years' time addressing the same issue. We've identified that alcohol is an issue and we are being reactive, but I think we've got to look at what's best for the community now, tomorrow, and in 10 years' time.
Thank you, Councillor Dane. I did suggest when I talked about the pirates that if it is hired out, that we have staff there to oversee it like we do at the event centre. those staff are working at the Memorial Sports Ground, and we could have the two venues that they could oversee. So I did suggest that. However, thank you for that. Anybody else got a comment, please?
Councillor Lee.
Councillor Lee, thank you.
Just the two recommendations you move. Are we not going to move that council undertake the public consultation? You're leaving that one out.
Yes, I am, Councillor Lee, because I'm proposing to lay the report, the public places proposed bylaw on the table, and for it to go back for modification.
First, okay.
First,
Cool.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else got any comments that they would like to make before we put the motion?
Just from
Mrs. Robinson.
Just in terms of clarification, once you've put the motion, Your Worship, if we can clarify what the next report, what you'd like to see the staff to undertake, whether it's a new draft bylaw which includes all sports grounds but includes pirates, or is it the waiting for the outcome of the wider Sport Waikato consultation and then reporting that back to you for consideration about what amendment would be necessary? That clarity will be helpful for us. And also the oversight of the pirates leasing or renting might be useful to give us some guidance on whose obligation would that be and who might fund that. So whether we change the rental agreements that they have to provide external security, or whether that's something that you're expecting event centre staff to put in place. A bit more clarity around that would be helpful.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. So what my proposing of the changes at this stage were that it becomes across the district if we are going to put any measures in place, rather than just identifying the sports ground, we make it across the district as far as alcohol areas go. That and that pirates has been proposed to be a no alcohol area. I'm suggesting that it remains as it is at this stage, because it's not a no alcohol area, is it? Is that correct, Mrs. Robinson?
Sorry, yes, I was nodding and shaking my head.
Sorry,
yeah, so Mr. Anderson may be able to speak to that better as his team manage the building, but there is definitely no sell and supply of alcohol license on that site. So if and when they do have events which provide the sell and supply of, they get a special license.
Yes.
Alternatively, they are not selling and supplying alcohol at their private events, and they are via rental agreements via Ted's team, which I don't have that detail.
Okay, I think my proposal is that I think that can be managed without making it a blanket alcohol ban area. But what I'm proposing is, rather than being just honing in on individual areas, that we make it across the board, and that what were the other things that we would need to talk about, that the pirates is managed as per well, my idea was actually that staff at the Sport and Event Centre could, because we do get an income from that Pirates Hall, that they could manage that as well. It's an idea, it's a thought, it needs honing, but that's what I've just put forward as an option.
Your Worship, if I may.
Yes, you may, thank you.
The understanding that I had was that this bylaw was looking at the land area outside the buildings and wasn't pertaining to the buildings themselves. And it is really the issue of when people spill into the land adjacent to the buildings that we have difficulties in controlling and managing. And if it's not prohibited, we have difficulties controlling it. And the police have a difficulty in enforcing anything if they don't have that ability through our bylaws. The buildings themselves are issues that we can probably deal with, and it's a lot tidier when there is the organisations asked for a liquor licence for that event. The problem we have is when there is not a liquor licence in place and people are doing BYOs and moving from the building onto the adjoining grounds, car parks, sports fields. That has been a concern that has been raised with us.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. The report, it says it's recommended that the liquor ban includes the Pirates Club rooms. So that doesn't include the, that's actually the club rooms. That's what the report says.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So if there's no more discussion on the proposal, that we receive the report and that the report lies on the table for modification. Those are the two recommendations. And then we can, and that the modification is that the proposal is that any changes to the bylaw includes across the district, parks and reserves and playgrounds across the district rather than just targeted. And I was including the that Pirates is we just exclude Pirates club rooms as a liquor ban area from the report. Councillor Machin.
I speak against that motion, specifically on the second point of making it universal across the district. I believe we're using a sledgehammer to try and crack a nut here. The Alcohol Act is to encourage safe and responsible consumption of alcohol. And we find out from reports from our inspectors and the police which areas are safe, where safe consumption and responsible consumption is happening. And we've also heard that we have an incident and a continuing incidence at one particular area. I am quite happy to do a specific ban on areas where there is trouble, and that is predominantly the Memorial Sports Ground, outside in the parks. I was a member of the alcohol regulatory body for a while and attended the local accord meetings. Police in general are happy with the licensed premises and people who act responsibly and get licenses, special licenses for events. 95% or 99% of them act responsibly. Occasionally some get out of control. And it appears that this has happened down the sports ground on more than one occasion. And that is the area we should be concentrating on. A blanket ban across the district really doesn't achieve much as far as I'm concerned. So that's my worries about it. We should be encouraging people to drink responsibly. There's nothing per se that says you shouldn't drink or you can't drink. But do it responsibly, and at times we need some oversight of that. And that's what the police and our officers are there for. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Machin. Are there any other comments from anybody who hasn't spoken yet? All right, we'll test the motion then. We've got two recommendations on the table, that we receive the report and that we lie the current report on the table for modification, including blanket, including including prohibition measures across the district on all playgrounds, sports grounds, and reserves. It's been moved by me. It's been seconded by Councillor Napor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Right. Okay. Against?
I am against the motion.
Councillor Machin, you are against?
Councillor Lee is against the motion.
Councillor Lee is against the motion, thank you.
Councillor Dane, thank you.
Councillor Dane is against the motion. That being said, the motion is carried. Is that right?
Councillor
Yes.
Schulte,
Oh, Councillor Schulte, what are you up to?
I'm against the motion.
Oh, and you're against the motion. Okay. So we've got, so who is for it? 1, 2, Councillor Wallace.
Yep.
And who else? Councillor Napo, Councillor Wallace, who else? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's lost. The motion is. Councillor Petley, what were you for it? You were, thank you. So that makes it.
Councillor Nellis.
Oh, Councillor Nellis, sorry, thank you, Councillor Nellis.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Thank you.
You're fine with it? Thank you. So the motion that is 5-4, so it goes through. So we will sit that on the table and have another look at it. And we'll be working with staff on the proposals there. We'll keep you all in touch. All right, thank you.
Your Worship, are we able to just seek a response from Councillor Glusina as well?
Sorry, Councillor Glusina, you didn't. Where is Councillor Glusina? I can't see any. Very few of you, unfortunately. Oh, he's not there.
Oh, he must have left the meeting.
Sorry, he's not there. Okay.
Yep, that's all right. That's fine.
Thank you. Right. Moving on then. Welcome back, Mr. Smith. And we are moving on to item 8.6, and this is submission on changes to the Māori ward and constituency process. Ms. Diamond, we've got you online, have we?
Yes, you have.
Cool, thank you. I'm just going to let you take this and explain this, if you will, please.
If I can take the report as being read, it does outline that this is the second part, excuse me, consultation on a legislative change that's been happening around Māori wards, as councillors will be aware. The first one was around changing whether you can have a Māori ward or not, and whether you had to go back out for consultation, and people were challenging that and weren't able to establish wards. So this is actually just the second part of the process, where they're trying to, what government's trying to do is align the two processes between the Māori ward elections and establishments of wards with the general ward establishment and the representation review.
Oh, just say something.
So that's what the report is about. And in the report there, in the consultation document, there are the questions, and we've just put forward what we as staff have thought the position of the council would be. So any feedback on that or any changes, this submission does need to be in by the 27th. So we have got a bit of time, but if we can get the changes done and approved, then we would be able to submit it into the consultation process.
Thank you, Ms. Diamond. Are there any questions or comments that anybody would like to make for clarification from Ms. Diamond? There being none, then I will put the recommendations, and then we can have the debate on it. Have I got a mover and a seconder for the two recommendations? That we receive the report and that the drafted submission is submitted as part of the Te Tari Tai Whenua consultation on the Local Electoral Act. Mover and a seconder, please.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Dane. Seconded.
Councillor Lee.
Councillor Lee, thank you. Opening it up for discussion now. Are there any comments or questions, any additions to the submission that staff have prepared? Any comments about the submission that staff have prepared? No comment? All right, I'll put the motion. Thank you, Ms. Diamond, for the work that's been done here. South Waikato District Council submission will go in to government with our thoughts and comments. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. That's our last one, isn't it? Right, now we're coming to the end of the full council meeting. We will take a 5-minute break before we go into the community and assets meeting. And I'll be taking that. Councillor Machin and I have spoken, and I'll be just chairing that meeting just for continuity as well. So I've got members' information requests. Are there any members' information requests?
Councillor Schulte.
Yes, Councillor Schulte.
My question through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Anderson and Mr. Parker. Looking out my window, the rubbish has been removed from the lake. Absolutely fantastic job. However, the poor ducks are sitting in mud. And when will the water be back?
Thank you, Councillor Schulte. Please, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Parker.
Is Mr. Parker online?
Yes, I am. Yeah, the actual lowering of the lake is currently being managed through the infrastructure and maintenance team, actually through Christian Roy. So we can check with him when he's liaising with the fishing club when they'll be doing that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other members' information requests?
Councillor Lee.
Councillor Lee.
So I've had a report back about the Retox bar on Rosebery Street, about the empty bottles that have been placed in the back of that establishment. Apparently, most either Fridays or Saturday nights, a lot of those bottles have been broken down that street, the access lane between the businesses. So I was just wondering if we could have somebody talk to the owners of Retox and get them to maybe enclose those bottles so then the public don't have access and they're not able to smash them down that access lane, please.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, I will take that concern to our Chief Licensing Inspector and follow it up.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Any other members' information requests, Councillor?
Councillor Wallace.
Sorry, who was that? Councillor
Wallace.
No. Councillor Naylor, I heard first, and then there was another one.
Yep, it was Councillor Wallace was at the same time.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I'll take this opportunity that I found out that the Duxfield Reserve and the Pokai Whenua stream or river is a significant amenity landscape. And a significant amenity landscape has got its protections around it, and Pauwako is going through it. It's a question more for Mr. Smith or Mrs. Anderson or Mr. Anderson or Mrs. Robinson. If Pauwako wants to go through a significant amenity landscape, do they have to consult with the council? Secondly, does it have to be consulting with the public?
Through you, Worship, I could answer that question. So if the route is going to go through the significant amenity landscape, a resource consent is required. Consultation with the public, I can't confirm that at this stage. No resource consent has been received at this time, but I know that staff are working with PowerCo about the processes that are necessary if that route is to go through the significant amenity landscape, and we'll keep council informed as soon as we know more.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor. Councillor Wallace.
Just to follow up, we had that lot of lighting issues in the streets. It's probably a question for Ted. Has that all been sorted now, do you know, with Powerco, the street lighting in Potato, because there was quite a lot of streets and time frame that the lights weren't going. Do you know if it's all sorted now?
Through you, Your Worship, there was a meeting on site scheduled to occur yesterday, which obviously has not occurred. Basically, the purpose of that on-site meeting was to establish what further actions were required. I will follow up by email and provide a response to elected members.
Thank you. And just to follow on from that, I was talking to Chris McKillop from Laser Electrical in Potaroo the other day. He was saying that Laser Electrical used to have a contract to council where they'd go out quite regularly and check all the street lights to make sure that they were all going. I'm just wondering if that happens. It's obviously not Laser Electrical anymore. Is that a regular thing? Is that done in-house, that the street lights get checked to make sure that they are all going? Or how does that work now?
Through you, Your Worship, we have a streetlight contract which is re-tendered between 3 and 5 years, depending on the term of the previous contract. It's been recently re-tendered a few years ago, so that contractor's got a responsibility to check the lights, and that continues to occur. We at the moment, the issue is the power coming into the network, not the lights themselves not working.
Okay, thank you. I just had to go back to Chris McKillop. So pretty much just to say that it comes up for tender and an existing contractor has it. They do get checked regularly, but at the moment it's actually a power issue coming in, because that was his question as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it. All right. Thank you, councillors. We've got that through that in pretty good time. I'm going to close the full council meeting, and we will be going into the community and assets meeting, but we are going to have a break for 5 minutes. So if you want to turn your videos off and mute your microphones, then you can go and have a cup of tea or coffee. Thank you. See you shortly. 10:52 it is now, so it will be just before 11 o'clock. We'll come back. Thanks. Right, how are we going? We're all back. Can I have a roll call? I've got my whole screen is the agenda, and I've got a skinny little panel down the side where I can see half a dozen people only. So I'm not sure who's here and who's not. Have we got Councillor Machin, are you there? No. Councillor Dane, are you there? No.
Sorry, Councillor Machin is here.
Councillor Machin, thank you. Councillor Dane,
Yes, I'm
thank
yes,
you.
I'm here, Your Worship.
Cheers, Councillor Glesina? Councillor Jansen? No, he's an apology. Councillor Lee, are you back? Councillor Naylor? Councillor Napor? Petley, I can see you, Gary. Councillor Schulter?
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, just another couple of minutes till we get the other people back on deck.
She's on me.
Just to check, Jen, am I able to be heard? Can anyone hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Yep.
Thank you.
Good. Right, Councillor Glesina, are you back? Yes, you are. Thank you. Councillor Naylor, are you back? Councillor Napor, yes, I can see you now too. Thank you. And Councillor Naylor. All right. Timers, we will make a start. So we've now got the Community and Assets Committee meeting, and it is the public agenda. We have apologies, and the only apology we have today is from Councillor Jansen. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor
Wallace.
Thank you. Councillor Petley? All good? Thank you. All those in favour? Again, carried. Confirmation of the agenda. It is as it is. We only have 2 reports today. Any conflicts of interest in the agenda today from anybody? There being none, we're just going to confirm the minutes of the last Council Community and Assets Committee meeting, and that was on Thursday, the 8th of July. That's a wee way time ago. So I am taking them as read that you've refreshed your memories of what occurred at that meeting. Councillor Machin was chairperson. Councillor Machin, have you got any comments you'd like to make? Any matters of fact?
No comments, really. It was as it is written here, with only a couple of comments, and of course we had the police report. So I'm quite happy with it is, and would be willing to move them.
Thank you, Councillor Machin. Moving it. Anybody else wanting any matters of fact?
Your Worship, I'd just like to make a comment, if that's possible. Just for a matter of process, we haven't moved the resolution to move into community and assets.
Neither we have, do we? Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't, but we meant to. Just for a matter of process, we've been pulled up on it before, so I just thought it might be worth mentioning.
Thank you for your help. No, that's good. Thank you. And I better do that first before we move this first recommendation. Okay, so move in a second into community and assets, please. Councillor Day, are you happy to move it?
Yeah, happy to move that. Not a problem.
Thank you. Councillor Petley, are you happy to second it? Yeah, you're muted at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, all good.
Thank you. All those in favour? Against, carried. Yeah, so thank you for that. Okay, so we've done apologies, confirmation of the agenda, conflicts of interest. Now we're confirming the minutes. Matters of fact, there are none, as I understand it. Councillor Machin has moved it. Is there a seconder for these minutes, please?
Wallace.
Councillor Wallace, thank you. I'm going to open it up. Any matters arising before we second them, before we move them? No matters arising. All those in favour of accepting the minutes? Thank you. Against? Carried. Cheers, Ta. Okay, reports. We've got the Assets Group report of July 2021. Mr. Anderson, I'm just going to take that, send that right over into your court. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll take the report as read. And really take any questions that might arise from the report.
Councillor Lee.
Councillor Lee, go for it.
Yeah, good morning, Ted. Yeah, just on the drinking water compliance, I see we're still having software problems because all the dates where the data was unavailable, they all coincided together. So I was just sort of wondering when the new SCADA data will stop a lot of that from happening, please.
Yes. Councillor Lee, on Friday last week, we approved the procurement plan to purchase the radio software, which has been one of the, which is a milestone. It has taken us a little bit longer than we had hoped for to do a proper stock take of what the existing system was capable of. We're making progress, and to be honest, it has been a lot harder moving forward than I'd ever envisaged. But I have the confidence that we've got a really good team working on it, and we're starting to make some good progress. And we're working really hard to have something set up and running by Christmas, and that we should see some benefits early in the new calendar year.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. Are there any other?
Bishop Snapple?
Councillor Napel.
Just while we're talking about the water, at the last council meeting, I raised the issue about COVID-19 testing in our water.
Yep.
And I just want to know if there's a concerted effort now to either start testing for that if we haven't. I was kind of left unsure as to whether or not that was something we were doing.
Yes, through you, Your Worship.
Yes,
we collected our, we've just collected a 24-hour sample, which has been sent through to ESR today. We actually had re-instigated those tests 2 weeks ago, and as I say, the first sampling was has been conducted over the previous 24 hours, and that will be sent through. That's for Takaroa only at this stage, with the intention of rolling it out into Pataru and Tiro later. The challenge that the government's got is that they've had to focus effort on the larger populations first, because all the testing's done in the ESR laboratories.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. That's good to hear, Councillor Napel.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments on Mr. Anderson's report?
Yes, Your Worship. Just another area highlighted in the report by Mr. Anderson. Thank you for the photos that you include in the reports. I know I've mentioned it before, but I'm very much a visual person, and that Te Whetū tree that we can see being on screen now, scrolling, that was just huge. That photo, the roots, it would have been really dangerous. So I'm glad that that's gone. So that's a comment more than a question. But underneath at paragraph, report number 5.1, in relation to the South Waikato Sport and Event Centre utilisation, do we do any modelling? That's my new word from our new COVID outbreak, as to how a closure of our facilities will affect our income going forward.
Mr. Anderson, if you can comment, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm happy to comment if you
Yep.
like, Your Worship.
Yes,
It's actually the pools and the event centre is actually really, really simple. It just stops. So whatever we get per month is no longer comes. That's that $10,000 or $12,000 per year that we get for per month that we get for the event centre is it just dries up. There is no other income.
Yes, so my question following on from that is, what effect will that have on our funding that we allocate in our annual, our long-term plan, our annual plan? I know we're looking at a lot of work to be done on our pools, for instance. So what's the impact that going to be for our community, and do we do financial modelling for this type of a crisis? I guess that's two questions. Sorry, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, happy to answer the latter. I guess now that we live in a COVID world, we probably should consider that there is likely to be, every period of time, there is going to be some lurgy that will go through our community, and we won't be able to use these services. It won't, from the level of funding that we achieve from a lot of these is actually very low. If you think, and I think it's in stand to be corrected, but it's either 5 or 10% for the pools. So any it's not a huge part. The bulk of it is ratepayer paid. So my belief is that this COVID outbreak or whatever might come in the future will not impact on the viability of the options that we're looking at in terms of the pools and the libraries, because if anything, I think we actually probably need those services more in an unstable environment. Yep. Does that answer that question? I'm not sure it does.
I thought it was a really good answer, and again it just emphasises the fact that council, as opposed to being reactive, from a governance perspective, I'm speaking, we need to think about these things going forward and expand the way we see our services being delivered, and obviously technology is going to have a huge part in that, and I just wonder what influence that's going to have on our budgets and all of those things, whether or not we ourselves need to look at a COVID-19 relief fund or something of that nature for our community. I know we've just looked at community contracts. Do we need to have, and I know we're going to discuss this further at a workshop, but do we need to have in our reports, when we look at how we're allocating funding, something that encapsulates, worst case scenario and things like that? Yeah, but again, that's probably a discussion for another time, but it's just something that's obviously been on my mind.
Happy to respond through you, Your Worship, in terms of a number of different things, if I can remember them all. One is around the through the post the last COVID outbreak, and I need to emphasise that this isn't a civil defence emergency, so there is no funding from government coming to the various entities, so there is no potential for anyone to reclaim. And what was made clear through the leadership group is that a lot of the funding, there has been funding, has gone to agencies and iwi post in a more structured sense for them to support this type of community support, basically. Yeah, so that wellbeing stuff has already been funded through iwi and a lot of the agencies. So the need, particularly in a short-term event, and who knows however long this event will take, there shouldn't be quite the same need. The next one is, if we looked at the future for local government, I think you're absolutely correct, and we do need to consider about one of those things is about community resilience. And if we decided to opt into the reforms, there is a significant amount of funding that will come in tens of millions of dollars in terms of from from central government that we can either spend or use or invest and use the annuity to support our community in all sorts of different ways. So I think the future is very different, and I think your point is very valid.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. You're happy with that answer, Councillor Napo?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
And I totally agree with your questions and comments. They were very relevant at this day, particularly our council and our responsibility for the social wellbeing of our community. It's very important. Are there any other questions or comments on the Assets Group report from Mr. Anderson, people?
Can I just make a couple of comments, Your Worship?
Okay. Oh, yes, you go first.
Just two things I'd like to comment on is the staff member that we've got taking care of the graffiti. I can't speak enough praise about the gentleman. He's always out there. He's quick to react to the graffiti. He's a lovely guy in the community. So just where credit's due to the gentleman there. And the second question I had was just regarding the lockdown that we've gone into. And when we look at the pools and the event centre where it's just stopped, maybe as a question for Ben is that what happens with the staff, and are they still paid through this time of lockdown? It's out of their control that they've got no work, but what happens there with some of the employees?
I'm happy to respond to that, Your Worship. Yes, staff are still paid and were paid all the way through the last lockdown process. Most staff have picked up their kit or are able to operate from home. So business as usual for most people. Yeah, I think nearly everybody that the office-bound people have picked up the equipment or are able to operate from home, and we've been checking through those. As you say, the areas where there is they're much more physical interaction staff, like the event centre, libraries to an extent, and pools. We can look to activate those staff for supporting in the community. At this stage, again, through the Zoom meeting this morning, through the local regional leadership group, which is the COVID wellbeing response oversight group, there's still MSD was still going to check to see whether there was a requirement for local government to support, because we've asked several times, do you want resources, do you want people to support? MSD is still in that thinking mode about whether that's required. I think that situation might change once the lockdown goes past 3 days.
Okay, thank you. Great answer.
Thank you, Councillor Dane. My question to Mr. Anderson, just for clarification, how is the wheelie bin rollout going, please? And now we're in lockdown. I understand it's been suspended. If lockdown does continue, what are we going to do for a start, and how are we going to manage that safely? Because that means we've got half with wheelie bins, half not. How are we going to manage that, please?
Yes, Your Worship. Very good question. Difficult one to answer. The lockdown has had an impact on the delivery of the wheelie bins, in that delivering wheelie bins is does not meet the criteria of an essential service. We're looking at whether the fact that refuse collection is still part of an essential service might give us an opportunity to start the wheelie bin deliveries next week, irrespective of what level we're at. So we're seeking some guidance on that. The reality is we were working right up to the last. We had planned to deliver wheelie bins right up to almost the date that we were starting the collections. So the loss of the 4 days through this lockdown, because essentially we've lost Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, those are 4 days that are going to be very, very difficult, in fact, almost impossible to pick up. So it's highly likely that we're going to have a delay to the start. And I've got a meeting at 4 o'clock this afternoon to go through the various strategies. Questions have been posed to various staff and contractors to come up with options on what we can do to try and meet that time frame. But it's becoming increasingly difficult to meet the start date of the 6th of September. It will also be quite challenging if we need to run 2 sets of vehicles, but that might be an option, that we pick up those people we can with wheelie bins and run a different service for those that still have to use bags. But until I've done the debrief with my staff this afternoon, I won't know. What I could do is give elected members an update either late tonight or early Friday, just to let them know what the plan might look like.
Thank you for that, Mr. Anderson. I appreciate that. Just one further comment. The number of projects going forward is quite considerable, and best of luck that we maintain the milestones of those projects. Right, are there anybody else that wants to make a comment about the report? Otherwise, I'll put the recommendation. Sorry, Councillor Naylor.
On page 10, I see that under 2.1, planned activities for the next 6 weeks, installation of heat pumps. I believe it's probably for the pensioner housing. I'm wondering if, and I believe that Arapuni Hall had some heat pumps ordered as well, going to be installed, plus a ramp. What's the progress on the Arapuni Hall? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, through your worship, the heat pumps that I'd referred to were for the pensioner units. That is correct. I don't have the specific details about a heat pump for the Arapuni Hall, but I do know about the ramp, and that was a sort of, I guess, costs have been shared with the Hall Committee getting their agreement. So the last I had heard, that there was a discussion occurring with the Hall Committee to determine whether or not they were comfortable with the design of the ramp and the cost that we had got, because that really comes from a fund that is in a way controlled or administered by the Hall Committee. So we're doing that in consultation with the Hall Committee. But once again, I can find out more up-to-date information and share that.
Yes, Councillor Naylor.
I thought that the ramp, you're correct, Mr. Anderson, about that communication with the Hall Committee, but I thought that communication was already done, or was that put in place quite a while ago. So there's no answer to that yet, or no action to that yet.
Through you, Your Worship, my understanding, I have not heard that we've received a response back from the Hall Committee, and I can check with the officer associated with that work package to establish whether or not they've had feedback. If they haven't had feedback, I'll encourage that officer to talk again to the Hall Committee and encourage feedback. I'm not too sure whether it's been accepted by the Hall Committee or not.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Anybody that hasn't had any comment, got any comments? Otherwise, thank you. I'm going to put the recommendation, and that is just to receive the report. Councillor Naylor, will you move the report?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, will you second the report? Thank you. All those in favour?
Right.
Against, carried. Thank you.
Can I just add in something, Your Worship?
Yes, Mr. Absolutely.
Yeah, we can either do this through members' information or through now. There's an opportunity has arisen where, as a result of the Chambers Street development with the trade training area is that we can put in an extra piece of purification stormwater kit. It's called a stormwater defender. So this will be a requirement over the next 3 to 5 years, or probably within 3 years, to actually purify our stormwater and to set up our community for having cleaner water from stormwater going into our awa. This has just arisen just very, very rapidly as part of the trade training development, and there's the potential for us to put our share of that stormwater defender, and it's not budgeted because we weren't aware of it, and we need to move quite quickly on it. It's about $50,000. This came up this last night. So is there an interest for council to support that? It'll be funded through the asset replacement reserve, so there won't be a rate impact, and it's done to help future-proof the stormwater purity for our community in the future. Again, any of that work that we're trying to actually support our 3 waters for the community into the future before we go into Entity B, staff believe is a positive thing.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Question, is this a higher level of service than what we previously had, and is this what we are asking the Swift Trust to put in as they develop that site?
Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I can answer that, Your Worship. The first answer to the first question, yes, this is a higher level of service than we've required in the past or have planned for in the past, but it is a level of service that we'll need to meet in about 3 years' time on existing infrastructure. All new infrastructure is required to meet this requirement when they do the development. This particular kit will help treat the wastewater generated from that industrial area flowing towards the trade training centre, and we get economies of scale by working together with the developer who's doing that work. So it'd be cheaper for us to add the 50,000 into the project work that they're doing and to get a good outcome. Alternatively, in 3 years' time, we'll need to do it anyway, and it will be slightly more expensive at that stage.
And the Swift Trust are aware of it?
Yes, the applications come from them.
Okay. No, good. All right, thank you. I am in support of us doing it now, doing it cheaper, and doing it because it's required. So that's my comment on that. We could add that into the recommendation as a second recommendation if councillors are happy to include that. Any other comments or about that, please?
Yeah, Councillor Lee.
Yes, Councillor Lee.
Yep, no, I agree with that outcome. It sounds like a good plan, and we should go forward with it. I'm happy that it's not going to cost us any money if it's coming out of the asset replacement reserve. So that's good. So I do agree with that.
Cool, thank you. So we will need a paper trail for this, will we? Other than the recommendation, Mr. Smith?
We'll put something in the next paper just to tidy that.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question, Your Worship?
Yes, Councillor Dane.
I'd like to know maybe who does that responsibility actually lie with? Like if it was a private development, wouldn't that lie with the developer to make sure that their stormwater discharge is clean? Or yeah, who does the responsibility lie with? And if it lies with the project, what's the rationale of the ratepayers having to fund it?
Yeah,
Mr. Anderson.
I can answer that. The developer is paying for the work associated with the treatment of stormwater generated from their development. But what happens is that there is another catchment coming into that area that is from an area that is not part of that development. And so that would then be somebody else's responsibility. And as a default, council's the last call on responsibilities. So because there's no development occurring in that catchment right now, it falls onto council's shoulders, that responsibility. But to be clear, the trade centre, the trade centre development is being fully funded by that development. So all the work required to meet the stormwater and treat the stormwater is being funded directly from that development. It's only the added treatment that we are funding, which gives a benefit to the remainder of that catchment.
All right, Councillor Day.
I'm still a little bit, I'm not quite comfortable with that, because it'd be interesting to know where the responsibility lies with the uncleanliness stormwater, because I think about that creek and where it flows from, and it flows from Cougar Park along there, and what feeds into there is stormwater from the farm, stormwater from the caravan park, stormwater from the industrial area, but also stormwater from State Highway 1 feeds into that stream.
Yep. Yeah, so Your Worship, going forward, we are most likely going to need to come up with a stormwater bylaw in the same way that we manage and control wastewater discharges into council's reticulation.
Yes.
So that is something we're going to have to look at in the future. Okay. What this treatment that we're doing is actually for urban runoff only. So we're not going to be treating anything that's occurring in the stream itself. It's what is coming through the pipe system prior to being discharged into the stream. And we will therefore have a benefit on the stream because what's been discharged will be cleaner than it's been in the past. In terms of the responsibility of people in the rural catchment, those are issues that are often dealt with by the regional council. We tend to get involved when it's our asset and need to manage what's happening within our own network.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Councillor Dane, comment?
Can I just add to that, Your Worship? I think the question is, it's the town stormwater. It's not the stormwater coming off the trade training site only. It's all roads. There's my understanding, and I'm no engineer, is that a lot of the stormwater hits that spot. Is that clear, or have I got that wrong, Mr. Anderson?
That's correct. It's a point at which a couple of catchments come together.
Okay.
Sorry, when I talk catchments, I'm talking about urban catchment. Roads. Yeah. So that's essentially the pipe system from the urban. From that industrial area.
All right, Councillor Dane.
Yeah, it makes a bit more sense, but I guess probably the answer that would satisfy me is in the future when we do the stormwater bylaw to address people dumping stormwater that requires more work than normal. But no, that makes a bit more clarity.
You can follow that up offline anyway if you want to.
All right, thank you. Yep.
Thank you. So
just I'm just a labourer this, just to round this out, already in terms of if someone puts a new development in, there's quite a degree of onus on that new development to actually improve the stormwater. So for example, some of the residential developments, they need to demonstrate that they're actually improving the state of stormwater in terms of volume by at least 20% as part of their own requirements. So there's already quite an onus on new development to actually improve, so that the amount of water that's flowing off them is only at its worst 80% of what it was previously. So there is quite a significant onus on new development for improving stormwater. The other part to it is that this, and I appreciate this is a public meeting, but stormwater is a major concern for every council in New Zealand in terms of our consents will come up over the next 3 to 5 years in rough terms, Ted, and the need for us to purify that water will be significant and almost completely unknown at this point. It's actually a real high risk of us retaining our stormwater reticulation and purification system.
Yep, that's correct.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that information. All right. So we were, I had put the recommendation that we receive the report. Mr. Smith suggested or started talking about the trades training site. So a second resolution that we could add, and we will have the follow-up report, please, for the paper trail, is that council agree to funding 50k from the ARR for an extra piece of stormwater kit, or what called a defender. I get, is that correct, Mr. Anderson? For the Chambers Street Trades Training Centre development. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, if you just say stormwater treatment device.
That sounds better. Thank you. Hang on. Stormwater.
It might even be worth leaving out Trade Training Centre, because that associates it with the development of the Trade Training Centre when it's actually not. Yeah,
correct. So,
okay, so for the stormwater treatment device for the Chambers Street development. Is that okay?
For the Chambers Street catchment, yeah.
Catchment. Okay, so take that out. Okay, yep, gotcha. So the council agreed to fund 50k from the ARR for a stormwater treatment device for the Chambers Street catchment. That sound all right?
Sounds
Mr.
good.
Yep, Mr. Smith, Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Okay, so I need a mover then for those two recommendations, please, if I can, councillors.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Seconding.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I like your pictures as well. I concur with Councillor Napel. Next one, Mr. Naidu, 5.2, your community report for July. And I'll just send it straight over to you too. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you enjoy pictures, my report's got a whole lot of pictures.
I know.
And, apologies, first of all, for the length of my report. It includes the week-long Matariki celebration report back. So I'll take the report as read. I just want to add something to my report, and then I'm happy to take questions. I had a follow-up call with the regional council around our public transport regional services. I haven't heard from them for a while. And unfortunately, in the last 3 months, no progress was made. The intention was for them to go out to the market to start looking at that service. They've had a lot of difficulties in terms of resourcing there, but he's just noted to me that they've now employed a procurement officer that will manage that project going forward. But he's uncertain whether we're going to hit the beginning of January as a start date for that regional service. So I'll continue just keeping.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Your Worship.
Oh, just a question. Are we already paying rates for the regional transport service to regional council?
I know that we actually funding, we actually rating for that service, but we haven't paid anything as yet because the service hasn't started. So we just typically paying for the normal urban connector and the district service.
All right, thank you. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so Your Worship, through you, I'm happy to take any questions on my report.
Right, well, just a question. Wallace? Also, I would like to ask, you haven't reported on these task force for jobs.
The main task force job was reported through the corporate report, but we are and we are putting a report, end of year report. It'll come to the council on the 9th, just giving you an update of of the year. And so we were quite successful. We had 32 employments. So it's a great story to tell. So we'll definitely do that.
Thank you. Right.
Councillor Wallace?
Thank you, Councillor Naidu. Councillor Wallace, yes.
Just a question, please, just about the bus shelters. They look cool. Are there other bus stops on the bus route that don't actually have shelters? Is there are there going to be more bus shelters erected, or is every stop got a bus shelter? I'm not that familiar with the bus route.
Yeah, through your worship. So the reason why, so a couple of them do have bus shelters. The reason why these bus shelters went up, it was because regional council identified they had funding available towards the end of the year, and they would wanted us to use it. So they approached council and said, if you guys can match, I think we paid a portion of it. It wasn't much that we could have 3 bus shelters erected. So staff actually went and did a bit of research on what are the more popular bus stops. And so those were the sites that were chosen. So going forward, I'm not sure if this will continue. I think it'll come down to regional councils having funding available for more bus shelters to go up.
Okay, so there are some bus shelters that don't actually have a shelter, but some do. Is that right?
Yeah, there's quite a number that don't have bus shelters
okay.
at the moment.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I've never done never ridden the bus, so I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Councillor Lee.
Councillor Lee, thank you.
Yeah, good morning, Gordon. Just about the air quality monitoring. A couple of nights ago, there was something on the TV about Cromwell and how bad their air quality was, and the number of excursions that they've had under the PM10s, and how the regional council and their council have not got the money to fund any of the same sort of stuff that we're doing for our community. So I'd just like to say, yeah, thank you to you and the regional council for trying to keep ahead of that, even though we have had some exceedances this winter as well. But there was just a comment that I thought was quite interesting, that we seem to be a lot better off than what Cromwell does. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lee. So we've been really promoting our program, and there's been a really good uptake. So the intention now is that the data we're getting from Taitola is that we can actually focus on areas. So now they're producing air quality data. So the intention now is actually focus on the worst areas and approach those people and see how we can support them to actually make targeted improvements. But you're right, absolutely right. This is across the country, and we're trying our best to keep those exceedance down.
Thank you, Mr. Naidu. Anybody else got any comments or questions, please?
Yeah, if it's yes, please, Your Worship.
Councillor Dane, yeah.
Just want to make a comment on the library week that we celebrated a couple of weeks back now, and just giving big praise to the library staff, especially Lolita. Her passion for libraries is, yeah, it's pretty amazing. But what was really great about the library week was that it showed that the need for a new library in the community hub, I guess, and it was great to see staff engaging and wanting that as well. So just more of an acknowledgement and thanks to Gordon and Lolita to showing staff that and councillors that that there is a need and a want, and it makes the new library project quite a very exciting one. So just more to say thanks, and yeah, good stuff.
Thank
Yeah,
you
through you, Your Worship.
Yeah,
through you, Worship. Just want to acknowledge Ebony Cuttons as well. She is the library manager. She's been doing a lot of work around the district. But as my reports emphasize, there's more and more demand for space at the library. So we're looking forward to that community hub, a community space as part of the library project.
So my question then, Mr. Naidu, thank you, and thank you for your pictures, because pictures, they actually do say 1,000 words, don't they? Have you got any comment on where the library project is at? And I guess that will stem on to the Falls project as well, where we're sitting. Have you got any update? Or Mr. Smith?
I'm hoping Mr. Smith will answer the question.
Mr. Smith.
Well, you, Mr. Naidu, that's lovely.
So was it?
Yes. So we're preparing for the 30th September workshop. So we're getting prices and time frames for closure, so also around the options of an upgrade for the Tokoroa pools. What would that look like in terms of how long would it be shut? Could we stagger it so it's all those logistic things? So we've got a good base to give elected members to make a decision, get some pricing on some options, so maybe some interim options around what a service might look like while we've got closure, and what the full pricing around the new pools might be. So there's been a criteria developed for analysing the 10 different combinations we have at the moment, and also a risk structure around that. So staff are working diligently through just to try and get that. So we've got all the information we can for the 20th of September, so we can actually get those, and the outcome of that workshop will be to reduce those 10 options down to 3 or 4, so we can engage successfully with the community around those options of location around library, pools, hub.
Oh, thank you. Right. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I will put the recommendation, if I've got a mover and a seconder, that we receive the community and corporate report.
Wallace.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Seconder?
Naylor.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Right. Members' information and Mr. Smart, I'm just looking. Paper road funding. Do you want to make a comment here first, please?
I certainly can. I popped an email out half an hour ago. So yeah, just to reiterate what I put in the email, there was around, it was probably, how long have I been here? 11 years. Probably 9, 10, 11 years ago, there was a block of money around about 900,000. I'm now making that up. That was received in from the Hancock's consortium for payment of forestry roads that were no longer required in the areas where the forestry to farm conversion occurred. As part of that arrangement, there was a part of the arrangement was that the funding that was received from those paper roads was to put in a particular reserve that would be used specifically to support people getting access to our rural environment. So hence the rural or riverside access, I think it was ended up being called, which is a bit of a weird name. So that money was popped aside, and that's been ring fenced, and it's been used. And I think there's some use of that in the long-term plan. Any of the other subsequent paper roads or any sale and purchase of land goes into, or particularly sale of land, goes into a reserve, into a specific reserve, which we can use for funding future purchases of land. That must be back into positive. It had been sitting on as around balance or nothing in there. So the money that comes in from paper roads now goes into that reserve and not into the Riverside Access Reserve.
Thank you. So that was, I think, Councillor Dane, your comment, that your question was, so that's an explanation for that. Okay, thank you. Councillor Schulter, did you want to say something? No?
No.
Oh, cool. All right, thank you for that. Mr. Smith, you've also and I've just seen it now, you've spoken about the stormwater defender unit, so that's been signed off already. Thank you. Are there any other members' information requests from anybody, please?
Just
yes, Councillor Petley.
Just the current status on the Rokawa Council meeting on the 24th.
No change, but I would, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would suggest that that's unlikely.
How soon do you think we could confirm that, Ben?
I'd say once the Prime Minister makes an announcement tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
I can update there.
Cool.
Yeah, so they've come back to me and just said they're awaiting the update tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. So you're comfortable with that, Councillor Petley?
Thank you.
Any other members' information request?
Yeah, I've got one, Your Worship.
Councillor Dane, yeah.
I was out the other day and I was driving past the pensioner houses, and I thought maybe it'll be good to have an update on staff's progress with working with our pensioners and the pensioner housing with the transition of the accommodation supplement, and if that's any issues arisen there. Are there any opportunities where councillors might need to help out? Yeah, just sort of an update. There was a big issue during the long-term plan of the accommodation supplement, whether they were successful or not. So I thought, oh, maybe an update would be good.
All right, thank you for that. So who would that?
I can. I spoke to Marty about this literally 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the pensioners seem quite settled in terms of their information. They know what they have to do in terms of going to MSD and getting support from MSD around that. So yeah, I think it's well in hand.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Right, there being no more members' information requests, I declare the Community and Assets Committee meeting closed. Thank you. So we are going to be going off live streaming now because we're going to go in. We've got one report to go in non-public, which we will start in just a couple of moments. So we'll give Tim time, I guess, to stop live streaming before we move into non-public. Thank you.
Now, before the break, we saw Jenny the Nixon.
Right, are we or aren't we? Can I have confirmation from somebody that we aren't?
We are still live streaming.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor Jenny. Just give me a moment to turn this off, please.
Oh, good. Thank you, Jim. That's what I was after. Cheers.
I was actually checking the live stream at the time, so all good. Just bear with me.